car wash, and then also the conditional use permit application for that car wash use in the M1A manufacturing zoning district. Next slide, please. And then also the third part will be the CEQA categorical exemption to file that. Next slide, please. Okay, so the site is located at 1308 South Lone Hill Avenue, again in the M1A zone. It's located directly across from to the west, to I guess my left, is Glendora Marketplace. It's at the intersection of Marketplace and South Lone Hill Avenue. Currently, I guess the current conditions of the site kind of working around up to the northwest or upper right is Walmart. And then to the north of the site, immediately above it, is Caliber Collision. And then again to the west is, my left, is Glendora Marketplace and, you know, sundry different retail and restaurant uses. So currently on the site, there's 25,000, just over 25,000 square foot office building, which was originally constructed in 1983 and again was formerly part of the Ormco Corporation's Glendora campus. Though not permissible as a standalone use in the M1A zone, the office was considered accessory to the manufacturing occurring in the larger campus, as I mentioned, which is now both sites are vacant. They do have shared parking, but are under separate ownership now, so hence the sort of separate development for this one. It's originally part of a big site, so there's separate ownership, and then to the, we'll mention that to the kind of running diagonal, that line on the map is the rail line. I will mention that in the zoning across in the marketplace that it's called the Glendora Commercial Specific Plan, and car washes are allowed by right in that zone. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so here's some existing conditions of the site now, some street views of South Lone Hill Avenue, and this is the Ormco office building. So some things you can see, it's a older office style from the early 80s. There's some existing street trees there, which we talk about in the staff report. Next slide, please. Okay, so subject parcel is about 1.7 acres in size, and it again involves demolition. This application involves demolition of the existing 25,000 square foot office building. It includes construction in the proposal of a roughly 6,000 square foot express car wash on pad A, which we'll look at some site plans here in a minute, so to kind of visualize this. These type of car washes are the type that are automated. So you drive your car through, and then they have some associated improvements with that, including vacuuming stalls as you kind of route through the process. Pad B in this two-pad proposal is a yet to be determined future use. We asked the applicant to prepare two alternative options, which again I'll show later here on the next slide. It also includes about 18,000 square feet of landscaped area, 27 total parking spaces, and I do want to mention that there's an improved entry in their proposal at that Lone Hill Glendora Marketplace intersection, which again we'll see on the site plan. So they're adding an extra lane. Right now there's one in, one out for this site. There's going to be 2 lanes egressing the site so cars can stack in a right turn if they're turning northbound on South Lone Hill Avenue. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the existing conditions, and it really just shows the sort of footprint of that 25,000 square foot office building. Up in the sort of my upper left, the northwest corner, that is where the existing Glendora Marketplace Lone Hill intersection is, which is signalized. And that in the current site, I will just point out that there's that 1 lane in, 1 lane out, and we'll see how that changes on the proposed site plan. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's a view of the proposed site plan, and you can see up at that top, it's a little small, but there's 2 rows of cars stacking heading out. I've got pad A and pad B highlighted. On the bottom there, pad B to the south is the proposed car wash tunnel. So the way this will kind of work is in sort of a counterclockwise, I got to do it with my hand, motion. Cars will come in, they'll make a south turn or go down on that site plan to the right, and then they'll go all the way down to the lower corner there, and then there's 2 parallel stacking lanes there heading eastbound, just below or south of the pad A, and which is the car wash tunnel, and then they'll head east, and then one by one enter into that car wash tunnel. And I will mention down there is where the menu boards are for ordering your car wash. They will then make a turn and go west through that tunnel to the left, and then work their way back up, make a right turn, and then there's a row of parking on either side with vacuuming stalls. And then they will then wrap around what's called pad B, and then egress the site, heading, sort of completing the counterclockwise motion back out onto Lone Hill. So next slide, please. And this, on the bottom, I included this. This just shows the vehicle stacking. So our requirement is for 120 feet of vehicle stacking for drive-through type uses. And on the bottom there, there's 2, it's very faint to see. I guess I could highlight it here with a pointer, but there's basically 2 rows of 9 cars there drawn on that site plan. So there's 18 cars stacked, with 120 feet divided by 20 is 6. So we require 6 cars. They've got 18 just in the bottom. And then cars can stack in that on the left. It's not shown any, but as they come down the drive aisle heading south, you can have, at least 9 or 10 cars there as well. So it's got quite a bit of queuing capacity for cars, if you will, on site. Next slide, please. Okay, so as I mentioned, we asked for a couple of options, alternatives, if you will, an option 1 or 2 from the applicant on how that pad B could possibly develop in the future. So to kind of see what the sort of future disposition of this site could be and development potential. So on the left, pad B, they prepared these 2 options for us. Pad B is a drive-through, pull-through, if you will, automotive services facility, such as a quick service oil change company, Jiffy Lube kind of thing, Jiffy Lube. And on pad B, we have a small 3,000 square foot manufacturing warehouse, which is consistent with that M1A zone. And so on the left, they've kind of got a pull-through condition there where cars coming into the site can then pull into the automotive service facility and then kind of hit that egress lane on the right. And then on pad B, there's sort of parking flanking these pad B sites for the warehouse use, which doesn't generate a ton of parking. We can come back to these later if there's questions and kind of work through some of these site plan elements. So next slide, please. Okay, in terms of architecture, the main facility or feature, if you will, of the car wash is a tunnel. It's roughly it's just under 6,000 square feet in size. Architectural elevations here included for your review, but they basically a modern style consistent with the brand image. There's architectural metal panels as some of the main elements. There's glazing, prominent metal, and some trim features. One thing I will point out on this is that item, there's a sort of a trim piece, if you will, on the front that's part of the design. So it's kind of a wavy form. You'll see it in the top right there. They do have some accent colors, red and blue, on the facility. And then on the lower left, we have elevations four-sided or 360 degrees of the trash enclosure itself, which we require to be consistent architecturally with the design of the tunnel. Next slide, please. So this is a sort of a high-level overview of the originally proposed landscape plan. Final water-efficient landscape plans would be submitted post-approval. So assuming that we have approval tonight, later on, they will come in and submit landscape plans to the city with their building permit application, and staff will review those for consistency with our water-efficient landscape ordinance. There are some existing street trees on the left or west side along Lone Hill. And we're kind of working with the applicant on some of those, trying to preserve some of those trees. Next slide, please. Okay, so finally, staff recommends that Planning Commission conduct the hearing, accept testimony, and consider and adopt the CEQA categorical exemption and a resolution approving the DPR for the car wash and pad site, and a CUP for the car wash use in the M1A zoning. With that, I would like to mention, before the applicants introduced, that we do have the city's principal engineer here tonight, Maria, to answer any sort of like traffic related or intersection related questions. With that, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hans, for that presentation. At this time, I'd like to call the applicant, Stan, is it? Stan Stringfellow, from Development One Group, to address the commission. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. First of all, Commissioner, members of the commission, we're very glad to be here tonight. It's taken us a little while to get here, but I want to compliment the staff. They thoroughly vetted this project. There's been a number of iterations that came through, and we think that we've got a very good plan here for overall development of the site. I handled the, have represented Fast 5 during this entitlement process, but also here tonight is Tom Utman, who is a partner in Fast 5, and also we have Gene Kim from TJW Engineering, who wrote the traffic, who did the traffic study. So at this time, I'd like to turn the time over to Mr. Utman. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tom Utman. I'm the founder and partner of Fast 5 Express. We started the company about 11 years ago, and since then this will be our 25th facility that we have built. Just to give you an idea where we are, Pasadena is very close up on Huntington Drive. We have one in Monrovia on Foothill. I'm sorry, Pasadena is on Colorado, and Monrovia is on Foothill Boulevard. One of the things that we all give you some of the background here. We started the CUP process about October 11th, so we've been here about 6 months. When we first started, we had different proposals to the city, and they rejected the proposal. And if you could pull up the landscape plan, I'll show you what they rejected and how we got here. Originally, the city's plan. Originally, we had the building going parallel to Lone Hill, where the tunnel was this way, because we wanted maximum exposure to the street. City planner said, no, we're not going to like that. We want a more future pad out here on the corner, and so the car wash has to be back here. We accepted that, and so we turned the whole side around, moved the tunnel kind of on the south side, not on the main corner, and we accepted that, and we went ahead and did all our traffic studies based on that, our noise studies based on that, and our water studies based on that. So we changed everything from the direction of the planning staff. The site's a large site. It's 1.85 acres. There's three real things that we're always concerned about: traffic, water, and noise. Some of our locations that we've built are in areas of very expensive homes, i.e. Costa Mesa. We have two in Costa Mesa, and one is on 17th Street in Costa Mesa, right up against $1 million homes. And so we've had to do traffic studies and noise studies for that particular tract behind it. And we always come out with no issues. We've never had any mitigation issues with regards to noise, even with $1 million homes directly behind us. This site, we don't have any noise issues because of the train tracks behind us and all the retail in front of us and Caliber repair to the north. So that area, we did not have any noise, even though we did a noise study for the staff, and it came out that we did not need any mitigation. The second thing we did was traffic, and everyone was concerned about traffic at the corner. How much traffic is this going to generate for people coming in here? One of the things that we did was move our queuing down at the south end and put 2 lanes instead of 1 lane, because now we can stack cars. We'll never use as many cars for that tunnel. We can stack all the way from here, 2 cars, and basically out to here. And because we're always concerned about this area here. So our queuing was always down here. We have plenty of queuing, we'll never use it. And then the third thing is obviously water. We're always concerned about water usage. Every time I go into a city, I always go to water conservation. We too are very concerned about water conservation. We try to educate the public how we save water for everybody that uses our facility. To give you some ideas, when a person generally does wash his car in the driveway or in a parking lot or wherever it is, they use about 125 to 150 gallons of water. We have about $400,000 to $500,000 of equipment that recycles everything on site. So we only use about 20 to 30 gallons to wash a car. So technically, we save about 100 gallons per car wash versus the normal guy that's washing his car in the street, driveway, and so forth. So we show the water districts that we will save the water district about 20 million gallons of water at our facility. And as soon as I start talking to the water district about that, they all get excited because we're saving water. And we're trying to educate the community that water conservation is a real key for all the cities involved. So water conservation is a very, very big factor for us. The other issues are the staff. It took us 6 months. You advertise, it usually takes 90 days. Well, the staff turned us around a couple times. We've had to do extra reports, and it's taken us 6 months to get here now. And hopefully you'll see that we've done a lot of work. Has vetted this project very, very thoroughly, and we accept all the conditions of approval. So we approve those, and I'm here to answer any of your questions. So I'm here to hopefully get your approval.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we ask questions of him now, or should we hold off until I ask for comment from the public? What's that? Okay, at this point, I'd like to ask, invite members of the public to address the commission on this item. This is your time to speak uninterrupted. You have 3 minutes to speak on this topic. And do we have any speakers?
Thank you, Chair. We did have one person raise their hand, but we have been unable to get them to respond. So we're going to request one last time, if you would like to give public comment and you are an attendant or attending via the Zoom meeting, use the raise hand icon so that we can acknowledge you. At this point, we have nobody that submitted an email to give testimony for this item, and I don't see that anybody has raised their hand, Zoom participants, to give comment or to give testimony.
Okay, so at this point, I guess I'll bring it back to commission for questions of either staff or the applicant. I'll start to my left with Commissioner, and I just blanked out on your name. This is Shetty. Thank you. So thank you, staff, for the presentation, and thank you as well, sir, for speaking. I think when I first read that there's a car wash going in on Lone Hill, the first thing I thought of was probably what the staff all thought about. How are we going to get cars in and out of there? It's already a very congested intersection. So I appreciate you working with staff to make basically another street within your property there. I think knowing the congestion there, that's going to be really good. And having a closer location so my son can see the foamy colors come down, that's his favorite part. So of Fast Five. Yeah, no questions for me other than that. Okay, Commissioner Norwood. All the queuing will come down south on the west side of the property and then head toward to the far south end of the property. So at first, the first drawing I saw looked like it was queuing also from the east side too, so it was like a double queue. So no, they only exit, they go through the west and then come back out. And for staff, if there was an automotive repair, like some other oil changing facility, is that zoned for that, or are they? So that's fine for that particular, for pad B I'm talking about.
Yeah, the two options they laid out are the two most possible options. There's not a lot of options for uses allowed in that zone, and those are the two that we would consider are probably the most likely to probably go to the site.
Okay. Yeah, I have no further questions. Yeah, I think the project is pretty well done and a good use for that particular piece of property.
Okay, Vice Chair Koff.
Well, the two things I always think about when I think about that intersection, well, actually the main thing is traffic, but it's already a very congested intersection, but I think you've done a good job at really planning for that. I like the idea and how flexible you were in terms of reversing your plan so that the queuing does not back up onto Lone Hill or affect Lone Hill. The other thing that I'm always the person that comments about is landscaping, and it looks like you have a nice landscaping plan. I know there's some existing trees on Lone Hill, but I'm hoping that you can save. When people plant new trees, they always tend to be, little baby new trees. And so if you can save some of the mature trees, that would be greatly appreciated. But other than that, I think it's a very well thought out project, and I appreciate the hard work that our planning department has done and also that your company has done.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Okay, Commissioner Becerra.
Thank you to the staff and for your presentation. I think this is a really good fit for that M1 parcel. I agree with Commissioner Cos. The landscaping is an important part. That is a really heavy traffic area, but I think once we get that metro line done, I think it might be better. But I do think this is going to be a good fit for that piece of property. I really like it.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got a couple of questions for the applicant. You said the water districts get excited when you say how much water you're going to save. What baseline are you using to calculate water saved? You've got to have how many people are washing their average, what's the average, how many cars are being washed in driveways, I guess is what I'm saying, versus at a car wash. Most of this information that we get is from a group called Water Savers. And it's a national chain that does studies through all the United States. And they compute how many people, and it's changing daily, believe me, because we get reports all the time. But when the reports that we get is that the cities are trying to keep people off their driveways. And also big apartment complexes, trying to keep them out of there. And so what we've seen is that we'll do about 200,000 cars at this location per year. So 200,000 times 100 gallons saved is 20 million gallons. And so when we start explaining that to the water districts, they say, wow, that's probably very close to it. Now, it could be off something. We could do a little bit more, less, but we save about 100 gallons per car that comes through our facility. So we are very concerned about water conservation. I mean, my kids are on me all the time about saving water at my house. And
yeah, and I'm not disputing that you do. I'm just curious how you arrive at the calculation for water saving, given water being such a big issue here in California or in the West in general. Who will open and close this, and what hours?
During we open at 7 o'clock in the morning. During the winter hours, we close at 7 at night. During the summer hours, we close at 8 o'clock. So after 8 o'clock, the place is closed. We lock it up. We're probably going to have gates so people can't drive in other than the other facility next door. And it's quiet, no activity.
Does it self-close or is it?
Oh, no, we have
managers.
managers, we have managers that close, open and close.
Any time frame for Pad B?
We're talking to Jiffy Lube. We're talking to a tire store. So it's kind of that, right now, we didn't really want to go out in the market until we had our night tonight. We didn't know if we were going to get approved or not, so I didn't want to go out and promise anything to anybody, so.
Okay, thank you very much. Quick question for staff. How is there a tax base or anything as opposed to a retail store? Is there a retail store there or on Pad B or anything? Is there any benefit back to the city financially at all?
Yeah, if it was retail, you would get some sales tax, but there aren't very many allowable uses in the M1 zone to do retail.
I guess that's my first question. Is retail allowed there at all?
Mostly industrial and manufacturing type uses.
Okay, but it's not, so retail could not go there.
Actually, no, it's permissive two uses that they're proposing, the auto-related use or the manufacturing or car wash.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you had said, Hans had said by right. Is that by the zoning rules?
Is what the car wash zone?
Yeah.
It's a conditional use permit, so yeah, maybe not that. So the car, when I was talking about by right, that is in the marketplace, the zoning to the west of it. This is a different zone. So in like Glendora Marketplace, where Chick-fil-A is, Guitar Center, all that stuff, car washes, express washes like this are allowed by right across the street. This zone, the M1A zone, is just that. I think we pull up the site plan. But the vicinity map actually would be better. I can kind of outline it if I point at this monitor behind me here. One side of the street. One back, please. Previous slide. Previous slide. Previous slide. Keep going. Previous slide. There you go. Okay. I'm going to point behind me here that the triangle. This right here. This is the M1A zone. All this stuff over here is the zone for the marketplace where the car washes are allowed by right. In this triangle peninsula here, these type of uses are conditional use. So the Jiffy Lube hypothetically would be a conditional use that you would hear at a later date.
Got it. Okay, very good. That's all I have. All right. So with that, I guess I will. Let's see. Okay, I will close the public hearing and call for a motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice Chair Cross, a second by Commissioner Becerra. We'll now request a vote. Thank you, and I will note that carries unanimously 5-0. Thank you.
Very good. Welcome to Glendora. All righty, so that moves us to the agenda item number 3. I will open a public hearing for a consideration of a resolution to approve a development plan review for construction of a new 2-story, a variance to allow related grading and reduce the front and side setbacks, and minor modifications to increase the second floor to first floor ratio from 75 to 85% on certain property. I would now like to invite Associate Planner Natalie Espinosa to present the staff report.
I think you already opened it. Opened the public hearing.
Yeah, I opened it and read it. Didn't I?
Yeah.
Scared me.
Good evening, Chair Davis and members of the Commission. Tonight before you is an application for a new single-family residence with related grading and a reduction of front and side setbacks. Next slide. Next slide. The site is located within Gordon Highlands gated community at 657 Gordon Highlands Road, just north of the T intersection at Oak Hill Drive. It is comprised of one legal lot that is approximately 91,000 gross square feet in size. The site and surrounding properties are zoned rural hillside residential and have a general plan designation of hillside very low density. Next slide. The proposed project consists of the following discretionary permit requests. A development plan review for a 4,381 square foot two-story residence with a 872 square foot garage, a variance for additional grading exceeding 150 cubic yards of soil within areas of the existing building pad, where the original natural slope exceeded 35%. Variances are required for these lots affected by unpermitted grading activity when the existing building pad was created. Another variance is also requested for a reduction of the front setback from 50 feet to 34 feet, and the west side setback from 30 feet to 15 feet. And a minor modification is also requested to increase the allowed second floor ratio from 75% of the first floor up to 85%. A variance was also previously requested and noticed to construct a wall that exceeded the 6-foot allowable wall height visible from the public right-of-way. However, since the site is located within the private development and only visible from Gordon Highlands Road, which is a private street, staff determined that this variance was not required. Next slide. This is the overall site plan of the property. As you can tell, these are very large lots. The majority of the lot is a slope, and the proposed project is proposed at the very front of the property. Next slide. And this is the enlarged proposed site plan. It shows that, it shows the proposed house with the garage, a spot towards the west side of the property. Next slide. When the tracts were designed and approved in the late 1980s and early 90s, individual standards were created for each lot located within the tract. This is the lot information that was approved for the subject property. Next slide. And here are the development standards that show the approved required development standards for this lot and the proposed project standards as well. Although the front and side setbacks are not conforming to the required setbacks for this lot, the applicant is requesting a variance to reduce these setbacks, which, if approved, would then be allowable. The same thing with the first and the second floor ratio. Although it is more than what is allowable, a minor modification is requested to allow this increase. Next slide. This is the maximum allowable second story floor area ratio table, which shows that the proposed second floor is actually 82% of the first floor. Next slide. This, thank you. It's okay. This is the front or the south elevation. It's also the street view. The project is a modern ranch style with characteristics such as a low hip roof with concrete roof tiles, large windows, open concept floor plan, and mixed material exterior finishes. In this case, the finishes is stucco and stone veneer. So again, this is the street view, the front elevation. Next slide. The rear elevation. Next slide. The side elevation. This is the west side elevation. And next slide. And the east elevation. Next slide. It's a little difficult to see, but here you can see in green, that is where the proposed fill is for the property, and then the red is actually the proposed cut. Although the majority of the existing buildable pad is going to be used, grading is, they are going to grade to expand that buildable pad, construct the driveway, and for any remedial grading that is required, and that needs to be repaired based on the geotechnical engineer recommendations. Next slide. Staff recommends the adoption of the categorical exemption pursuant to CEQA and to adopt the approval resolution for the development plan review, variance, and minor modification for the new single-family home with related grading and setback reductions. The project team and I are available if you have any questions.
Very good. Thank you for that report, Natalie. At this time, I'd like to ask the applicant, Susan Vanderpool, if she would like to address the commission. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you. I don't really have anything to add other than I'm happy to be working with Natalie. She's been a great support in this process, getting through the system. So I'm here for any questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, at this time, I'd like to invite any members of the public to speak now. Do we have anybody on Zoom?
Thank you.
Anybody here?
Thank you. At this time, we have no one that has used the raised hand icon to request to give testimony, and no one via the public email as well that submitted anything for public for testimony. Thank you.
And just very briefly, Ms. Vanderpool, I just to confirm for the record, you've reviewed the conditions of approval attached to the proposed entitlement, and you agree with the conditions of approval? Okay, for the record, let it show that she answered in the affirmative.
All right, very good. So, okay, so I'll bring it back here to the commission and for deliberation, and I'll start to my right with Commissioner Becerra.
Thank you for your presentation. I don't really have any issues with the property. I think it's beautiful and nothing to add to that area. I don't have anything else to add.
Vice Chair Koff.
My comments are just very similar. I think it's a well thought out project. I don't really have any concerns with the variances that you're asking for.
Commissioner Norwood.
Yes, presentation, thank you. I do have a couple questions. If I can go back to the slide that just shows the lots. Okay, right, yeah, that's the one there. So, so this is where the lot is sitting, and I can't get my bearings on what's east or west on, in terms of, so there's a property to the left of it, my left, that has a structure on it, correct?
Correct.
Right, so my only concern is that the variances, and I think it's well thought out and everything, but you also have a lot to the right, my right. Would this become an issue? Is it going to be encroaching to where you're talking about a setback of 15 feet on the west side? Which side is the west side?
The west side would be the left side, so towards that the house that already has the structure.
Okay, so the variance on that side up to 15 feet, so it looks like it's not like encroaching. I was worried that another house would be built there and they're going to the right or the east, and they go, wait a minute, you know, I want that same luxury and I want to be right up on that, and all of a sudden the structures are within 30 feet of each other as opposed to having, so I'm fine with the variance, both for the front and the left, and and in the floor area ratio increasing from 75 to 82%. My only caution on that is just, again, it's I guess we call it a Pandora's box, where it creates issues to where if one gets it, but these lots are so big, it's not making a difference on this particular project, and I don't foresee it being a problem.
So that is actually only allowed within the RHR zone, so it's pretty much particular just to the hillside properties. It's not something that is allowed outside of that. And the reason is because they are not, the way that we measure the area on the homes in the hillside properties is not based on FAR, it's based on lot coverage.
Okay.
And so if you just base it on FAR, then they would actually be allowed houses smaller than houses outside of the hillside.
Okay.
So that's why we allow the increase to 85%.
Okay. Answers my question. Thank you.
Commissioner Rossetti. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, one question. I think I understand for the side setback, it kind of matches the house next to it. They're not encroaching on anything there, but it's hard to see. It's not a topo map, but
I know.
is the reason for the front setback reduction and the variance request have to do with the hillside or?
It is. So if you can go forward to my last slide, basically. Yeah, thank you. You can see that at the very back where that wall is, it's already encroaching into where that hillside is. So for them to not disturb that hillside as much, they asked for the reduction in the front setback to move the house forward. If they were to adhere to the 50-foot front setback, then they would have to do a lot more grading, disturb that hillside, and it would just be a lot. It would be disturbing the natural grade.
Gotcha. Thank you. That's it for me. Thank you, Commissioner Rossetti. Is that a retaining wall back there?
Yes.
How tall is that? Is that the one that was in question?
Oh.
I didn't think so, because that's not visible from rights of way.
So the one that was where we thought we needed a variance is actually going to be at the front.
Yeah, I'm talking about this one that appears to be on the north.
Yes, let me get to that. One moment. It ranges, I'm sorry, it's about almost 6 feet. 5.9 feet.
Okay. So, and to move the house back any further, I'm assuming it's at least a 2-to-1 slope out there, and the wall starts growing exponentially as soon as you start cutting into the hill.
That, and also it starts disturbing the area that's over 35% slope.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, that answers that question. Where is the 25-foot height measured from? I noticed it's staggered. There's a garage down here. What's finished floor? What's considered finished floor?
So it's actually not measured from the finished floor. It's measured from the finished grade, and the finished grade is where the grade is outside. So in this case, it's so looking at this picture where that stone
The fascia, the lower fascia.
well, yeah, the wainscoting at the bottom. It would be at the very bottom. That's where the finished grade is, and then the finished grade, in this case, goes down where the stairs are. So it's the envelope goes like this. So
And that's the front of the house to the left.
correct.
Okay, so it appears to be taller than 25 feet in the street.
It
And that's what I
appears
was
to,
noticing.
yes, it appears to be taller, but it's not. It's just because it's set back.
It's set back from where you measure grades, where you measure 25 feet.
And also, the garage is, well, what's on the basement floor, I guess, is the garage. So,
Garage.
that's only garage space.
Now, if that were a habitable space,
It would not be allowed.
it would not be allowed. Okay. All right, very good. All right, and then one comment. Can you go to where it says conforming, non-conforming? They all say conforming.
Oh,
That
yeah,
slide?
the development standard, go back, yeah. There.
Yeah, go back.
Forward
back.
two.
Yeah, one more. The chart.
There you
Right
go. Yes.
Okay, in the past, this used to say, like, the front setback, it would say non-conforming. You've now asterisked the analysis to conforming with a caveat down here. Why is that? It's a little misleading I got used to looking at this analysis thing, and I could pick out real quick which was non-conforming. It's easy enough to do with the asterisk too, but I'm wondering why we did that.
Well, the reason is because it would be allowable with the variance. So at that point, that setback would be
But as
allowed.
it sits here right now, it is non-conforming.
Yeah,
It's subjective. I mean, I would say it's conforming with the asterisk, but you could say conforming, so. Well, again, like I said, I'm used to seeing that say non-conforming, and if we approved it, then it would be conforming. But
So noted, we'll do it for the next report.
Yeah, well, for a layman looking at this, they would go, oh, everything's conforming.
And also because there's
That was
nothing
my
on the
first
property.
answer, because that's what I do with many presentations. I go, oh, everything's conforming, as opposed to non-conforming sits out. Now I got to read the asterisk out. It's not a big leap of faith right there, just an observation. That's all.
Okay, we'll note it for the next
Okay.
report.
All right, that's all I have. All right, so with that, any final comments? Anybody raise any questions?
Just that I agree with you about the conforming versus the asterisk. I think it's just easier to read the other way.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. All right, with that, I will close the public hearing and request a motion. Now, let me ask you this. Do we have the motion on 1 and 2? You don't have to make it separate motions. If you want to move the entire recommendation all as one motion, you can do that. I would recommend we do that. Unless anybody has an issue with splitting them. Okay.
Okay. We have a motion then by Vice Chair Cox and a second by Commissioner Becerra. We'll ask for a vote. And we will note that carried 5-0. Thank you.
All right, very good. Well, I don't know if you live here or not, but welcome. And I guess you're sticking around, aren't you? All right, so that brings us to the what? I don't have a 4. Oh, I got it up there instead. Okay. Item number 4, consideration of a resolution to approve a development plan review for construction of a new 2-story residence and a variance to allow related grading. All righty. So with that, I'm going to invite you to present again.
Okay, next slide, please. This application before you is again to adopt the categorical exemption based on CEQA and to approve another new single-family residence and related grading within the RHR zone. Next slide. This site is also located within Gordon Highlands. It is located at 663 Gordon Highlands. This one's at the intersection of Oak Hill Drive. This is actually the property to the east of the project that I just presented. So, not to get things confused. I just wanted to clarify that. It is comprised of one legal lot that is approximately 117,000 gross square feet in size. And also, it is also zoned rural hillside residential with a general plan designation of hillside very low density. Next slide. The project consists of a development plan review for a 7,768 square foot 2-story residence with a 1,055 square foot garage, and a variance for also additional grading exceeding the 150 cubic yards of soil within areas of existing building pad where the original natural slope exceeded 35%, which again is required for these lots affected by unpermitted grading activity when the existing building pad was created. This project also had a variance that was requested and noticed to also construct a wall that exceeded the 6-foot allowed wall height visible from the public right-of-way, but staff also analyzed it again and saw that it's only going to be visible from Gordon Highlands Road, which is a private street. Therefore, we determined that a variance was not required. And also a minor modification was also originally requested and noticed for the for the compliance of the 75% second floor, but based on analysis and inaccurate accounting of square footages, staff also resolved that it was not required. Next slide. Now, this is the overall site plan showing the entire property and the 2 neighboring properties to the east. and it lightly shows the sloped area at the front and the rear of the property. Next slide. This is the enlarged site plan of the project. The proposed residence is proposed on an existing building pad towards the front of the property. Again, there will be a slope towards the in front of it, but the access to this property is going to be located 2 lots to the east because the slope in front of the property is so steep. So there's going to be an easement between those 3 lots to access lots 4, which is the subject property, 5 and 6, which are the 2 properties to the east. So this project consists of a driveway that starts at lot 6, goes through lot 5, and ends in lot 4, which is where the subject property is located. This was required, again, because the slope is steep. It is too steep for LA County fire access and just to access the property in general. Next slide. Again, when the tracks were designed and approved in the late 1980s and early 90s, individual standards were created for each lot, and this is the lot information that was approved for the subject property. Next slide. And these are the development standards with the approved required standards and also the proposed project standards. In this case, all of these standards are conforming. Next slide. This here shows the maximum allowable second story floor area. I showed the calculations, and they are just under the 75% that's allowable. So therefore, we removed the minor modification from the application. Next slide. This is the front elevation. The project is a Mediterranean style with front elements such as a hip roof, natural stone facade such as masonry veneer and capstone trim. It has large vertical windows and a neutral color palette. So next slide. This is the rear elevation. Next slide. And then on the left is the east elevation, and the west elevation is shown on the right. That's what you would see coming up the driveway. Next slide. This is the proposed grading plan. Again, the applicant is proposing to locate the building in where the existing buildable pad is, but grading is still proposed to expand the buildable pad, construct the driveway, and for the remedial grading required to repair the unpermitted grading that was done. Next slide. Staff recommends the adoption of the categorical exemption pursuant to CEQA and to adopt the approval resolution for the development plan review and variance for a new single-family house with related grading. And the project team and I are available if you have any questions.
Very good. Thank you, Natalie. At this time, I'd like to invite the applicant, Susan Vanderpool, to address the commission if she's so wishes. Okay, very good. Now I'd like to open it up to the public, both present and on Zoom. Do we have anybody?
Thank you. We have received no requests via the Zoom attendees or emails via the public comment email to give testimony.
All right, very good. All right, Commissioner Rossetti, anything for?
Yeah, thank you, Natalie, again for a good presentation. Question, so if the 2 lots that are, I guess, just east of that one get developed in the future, that driveway will service access and location to those homes as well?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And does it cut into their property at all, or is it kind of?
It does. Can you go back? Oh, actually, you can. Oh. hopefully you can see it from here. This is the existing aerial, and you can see where there's a sort of an existing path here in this area, and then there's a driveway. So that's already going through that one property next to it, and there's a small portion of it that they have to move that driveway. So that's going to cut into that property.
Okay. And is it all owned by the same?
That I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But there shouldn't be any issues making that driveway go through those other properties?
I believe that property owner is here, and he might be able to answer that question.
Okay,
Yes, they're all under the same owner.
very good. That's it for me. Thank you. Commissioner Ellwood. Yeah, I do have a question on the driveway also. There was a grading picture that I found to be pretty helpful that had some color contrast to it. If we can go back, it was almost like the last slide.
That's right, please.
Right there.
Thank you.
So they show the driveway going out. Right now they're owned by all three, by one owner, but in the future, I'm assuming they're not, correct?
Correct.
This is a development that these homes will eventually be for sale. So this easement, and again, maybe staff can chime in on this is an easement that's kind of already existing, but it's going to be moved a little bit for the project, but it is cutting right through the front portion of a complete another lot, and just kind of touching on another lot. So do we have a contingent plan to make sure that the future owners of the lot just east of that, they know when they buy this lot that they're going to have to share this driveway, the cost of the driveway, because they'll have to share the cost of it for repairs and whatnot, things like that?
So there will be a recorded easement that is required by Public Works to access those properties, and so that would be recorded with the land. And so when those property owners buy the homes, they would be made aware of that.
Okay. And this particular driveway has been reviewed and accepted by LA County Fire Department in terms of slope and grade.
Correct.
And access for fire apparatus and equipment.
Well, so far they've done more of a preliminary approval, but during the plan check process, they will have to get approval from LA County Fire.
Okay. All right. And then the last question I have is, and again, what was the front setback for the property where the structure's being built? I forget. And with the setback, it really doesn't matter what the setback is. I'm curious, what's going to be on the front portion of that property? Obviously, the property is going to be up on a hillside more. So is it just going to stay natural vegetation? Is it going to be completely landscaped? Is it going to have some kind of ability to so that there's no runoff in terms of earth into the street? And it is a private street, correct?
Correct. It is a private street. There will be landscaping on that slope. It's not just going to remain natural. And so the applicant will be submitting landscape plans for review with staff.
Drainage plans would be part of that?
Exactly.
Okay. And as far as the private street, correct me, I mean, all the water mains and hydrants that are to be placed up there for not just domestic use, but for fire department use is also run through the city water department and maintained by the city water department? Yes, I'll do the capacity studies with the fire review for the hydrants. Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you. Vice Chair Koff. Thank you.
My only question really concerns that easement, but it sounds like my fellow commissioners have already asked those questions and have been answered, so that was it for me.
Commissioner Becerra.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I do have questions about the easement and how it's going to affect Lot 4 in the future. Will they have to come back and ask for variances for setbacks and things like that with this easement in place?
In terms of, like, the front setback, is that what you're talking about?
For Lot 4. So with this particular lot, they're asking for an easement to access the property. And the easement on the property that they're sharing the easement with, will this encumber the property so that they won't be able to build it? And will they have to come back for variances and setbacks and things like that to comply?
Well, so the subject property is lot 4, and I'm thinking you're talking about lot 5, the one right next to it. No, that's okay. I just want to verify. I just want to make sure I answer it correct.
That's the lot that they're sharing the easement with.
Okay. So that project is going to have to come to the commission regardless. As of now, we don't have anything proposed for it, so I don't know what type of setbacks, what type of project they're going to have, but I mean, they're going to have to ask for a variance regardless for any related grading because it is part of those the grading that was done illegally. And so I don't know, and I don't know what the individual setback is for that property itself.
And maybe I could kind of help answer that question. So the driveway, all of these lots, when the tract was originally recorded and then subsequently through other approvals, they were identified on each of the lot general locations of where pads were going to be. So I don't know if you remember, and this driveway was part of the access to this area from the beginning. Do you remember on lot 5 kind of generally where the pad is going to be? I think that's the question. They're not, maybe the owner might have the answer to that question, or you. Do you know where the pad on that lot is? Because it's generally, I think, already defined.
Do you know where the pad would be on that side?
Looking at the aerial of lot 4, the pad is this area right in here, and this area right in here, just above the driveway, is where the pad is.
So just for the record, the property owner indicated that it's the area just above the driveway, just north of the driveway.
Thank you. That is the only concern that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is that an HOA up there?
Yes.
It's all HOA up there. And I understand it. It's really none of our business once we approve this, how you entitle access and ingress and egress. It's you get to fight it out. I do have a concern about that though, because I don't want to paint ourselves into a corner and have to go above and beyond what a standard easement might be in the situation if this driveway wasn't going through. So if I'm understanding correctly, this is going to serve lot 5,
4, 5, and 6.
4, 5, and 6. Okay. All right, that's really all I have. Oh yeah, let me circle back. Anybody else have any questions? Commissioner Norwood.
Again, if we can go back to the one with the color contrast. I'm assuming for lot 5, because it is owned by the same group. That's correct. So, and maybe the developer or the applicant, is it your plan to develop that lot also? Or right now, you're just developing the 2 lots?
I have one of the project team members ready to answer that question.
Okay.
Whenever.
Yeah.
If
You can come up, yeah.
My name is Joe Leva. We're not supposed to buy the 2 lots, and we're not sure what, I'm sorry, the lot before this project or this current project, and we're not in escrow to buy the other one. So 4 and 5. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So we're just focusing on those 2 for now, and then depending on how the economy improves and how things go with these 2, we'll consider making other offers. But for now, we're just focusing on these
Lot 3 and 4, the 2 that are being developed.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. 5 is the one with the easement.
Correct. 5 is the one with the easement.
Okay.
And it's in our best interest to make sure that that easement is properly set up by our attorney so that we make sure everybody's happy in the future.
Okay. And for for staff, when you're looking at these projects for lots 3 and 4, I mean, do we take into account that this easement's going right across? It looked like where the pad was shown by the gentleman. I mean, this driveway is like almost on the front doorstep of the next of where the pad is. Am I mistaken, or is where you showed the pad is? It looked like that driveway is right there, and then there's the building pad. Okay, so I mean, I guess I'm a little. I'm assuming that the city and the staff has also looked at, okay, at some point someone's going to want to build on that, and we have to have a contingent plan to, because we're approving it, and it was presented to us, and whoever buys that lot 5 is going to go. I feel a little cheated here. I'm building a house right on top of someone's driveway that's cutting right in front of me.
So that is in fact how the access to these lots was designed originally. If the area up there has gone through a couple different, I guess, evolutions to this point, and probably the most recent back in 2008 when just after the road was graded, curb and gutter was put up, and I think even the fire hydrant infrastructure, things like that, were installed. That road that was permitted, it did take information from the original tract map that identified access to all of the lots, as well as areas where pads were going to be. And it is true that some of the lots have smaller pad areas or more limited ability to develop than others. I don't have remember the numbers off the top of my head, but each individual lot has a data sheet that was approved back in 2008, and that data sheet identifies both the access points as well as the maximum pad area that can be developed, and other factors that we take into account when we review these applications. So in fact, it actually makes it comparatively easier to review these lots than it does other lots in hillside areas. So I do hear what you're saying, but it is something that that was established through prior approvals of the development of this area.
I'm not me with the approvals of that's been going on late 80s through the 90s through the 2000s. I mean, if I'm buying a lot, I'm like, okay, but I'm buying something that I knew has been approved in place for 20, 30 years. So I would live with it. So I just was a little concerned about me as a person buying that lot with a driveway right there, right in front of my pad. But
and typically when these lots go up for sale, I mean, the first thing someone has to do is they have to, retain a team to explore if what they want to build on this lot is going to meet their expectations. So before they get to this point in front of you, and you have the developer of the site, and then you have your potential buyer. So you can see they may be in escrow right now, and the buyer has an expectation of what they want to build on the property, and I'm making an assumption here, but that is probably a condition of the escrow. So typically that's not atypical to see. And some of these lots, like I said, we're of the lots that are remaining, I'm going to guess maybe 10 to 15 are remaining in this tract at this point. And so you're getting down to maybe some of the lots in the future will be a little bit more limited on what you can get on them. But the owner or the prospective buyers do their due diligence to make sure that they're getting what they want.
Okay. I just want to add, this isn't untypical. In Glendora's hillside areas, there are many lots that share private driveways to access multiple lots. Just how topography works and how access to the multiple lots works is many cases of it up there. And Jeff brought up a good point. As the future happens here, and the remaining lots are really happening up in Gordon Highlands, you're going to start seeing them with the more challenging ones, the ones that weren't the easiest ones to build. So there'll be more of these in the future. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Norwood. Anybody else? Commissioner?
And just before we close the public hearing, I will, for the record, ask the applicant, have you reviewed the conditions of approval, and do you accept the conditions of approval? Thank you. Let the record show, answers in the affirmative.
All right, very good. Well, at this point, I will close the public hearing and request a motion and a second.
Thank you. There's a motion by Commissioner Unsetti, a second by Vice Chair Cross. We'll request a vote. Thank you. We will note that that carries 5-0.
All right, very good. Well, thank you very much, and welcome to Glendora again. All righty, so. All right, so this would bring us to the consent calendar. I request a motion and a second, please.
Thank you. We have a motion by Vice Chair Cross, a second by Commissioner Norwood. We request a vote. And we'll note that that passes 5-0. Thank you.
Okay, so there are no commission agenda items, so that moves us to unfinished business. There appears to be no unfinished business items as well. This brings us to agenda item number 6, new business. Consideration of a resolution of Planning Commission of the City of Glendora approving a 12-month time extension for a previously approved project conditional use permit for a wireless telecommunications facility at 701 South Ellwood Avenue, South Hills Park, project number PLN 22-005, previous project number PLN 19-0042. This time, I'd like to invite Senior Planner Hans Friedel to present the report.
Okay, Commissioners, good evening once again. Planning Commission originally approved this CUP application located off Ellwood Drive in the South Hills Park for the wireless facility back September 1st, 2020. Next slide, please. So the applicant is requesting a time extension on the previously approved CUP for 1 year. Next slide, please. The address is 701 South Ellwood Avenue in the South Hills Park, kind of along Big Dalton Watts there. And that arrow is in the middle or center, if you will, is pointing towards the spot where the future wireless telecommunications facility will go if the extension is approved. And it's in a generally inaccessible area of the park behind the gate. Next slide, please. Okay, so in July 16, 2020, SmartLink LLC, on behalf of AT&T, applied for the original CUP for a wireless telecom facility at the proposed location. The details of the proposal included tower concealed as a faux water tower. So basically, we'll have a elevation that shows a rendering of it. So it's a water tower looking facility that's a self facility. The height is 60 feet. Includes an equipment enclosure, landscape screening, and minor infrastructure adjustments at sites to sort of support the proposal. Condition 14 of the original resolution of approval required construction to commence within 18 months of the effective date of the original approval. I do want to mention that the applicant was in a very long, extended lease negotiation with the city, which just recently concluded with City Council approving a lease agreement for the site, as it is on city-owned property, hence the delay. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's a site plan, if you will, of it. Again, this is kind of a reminder of the previous CUP. So it's in that sort of triangular area there. The landscaping is shown. On the sort of upper, cutting across, you've got Ellwood Avenue, and then that line sort of going across the upper half of a series of lines is the Big Walton WAS. Next slide, please. So here's an elevation of the sort of stealth water tower facility, if you will. It's not a water tower, but it's a wireless facility made to look like one. I do want to mention that the art is purely conceptual in nature. Final artwork will have to be approved through, via planning staff at a later date, if approved. Next slide, please. Here's a couple of photo simulations, just looking towards the South Hills Park, again showing without the artwork the proposed water tower wireless facility. Next slide, please. Okay, so we are asking the Planning Commission to adopt a resolution extending the original CUP approval for an additional year, 12 months. I do want to mention that the applicant's representative, Will, is available via Zoom, I believe, tonight to answer questions, as is staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Hans. Appreciate it. All right, so I'll bring it back to commission, and I'll hand it over to Commissioner Norwood. Any questions?
No, I have no questions.
Okay, Vice Chair Koss.
It sounds like the original delay was due to the lease agreements. Is that correct with the city?
That is my understanding. It was
Okay.
a long negotiation.
Okay, do they anticipate any additional delays?
Not that I'm aware of. Might be a question for the applicant, although I will mention that they have been preparing their building permit application for construction, so just
Okay.
see that.
All right, that was the only question I had. No, I don't have any questions at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Rossetti.
None for me, thank you.
I don't have any questions either. All right, so with that, I'll request a motion and a second, please.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Becerra and a second by Vice Chair Koss. I'll open up a vote. And we will note that that passes 4-1 with Chair Davis dissenting.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so that's rounding us out here. So any closing comments from staff? Council? Commissioners?
I would just like to say it's nice to finally meet you all in person, and staff as well that I haven't met yet, and be here. So thank you to everybody that spoke today, and yeah, good to meet you guys.
I want to second that. You're all much better looking in person than you are on Zoom. Thank you, and that was a good meeting.
Very good. I echo all their sentiments, and welcome back to our slice of normalcy here in Glendora. I now officially close this meeting at 8:20 p.m.